Welcome to the show, Tim. I appreciate taking the time to sit down and talk with me. What's your clean date or sober date?
February 11th, 2018.
Dude, oh wow, so you're a couple months before me. Then I'm April 25th, 2018. You you got it
It's the day
right
after
around.
my belly button birthday. That's great, man. Yeah.
Yeah. What does that mean? Belly button birthday.
Well, you got a sobriety birthday as your clean date, and then your belly button birthday, your government birthday.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, because it's weird in Pennsylvania they don't say birthday. They call it just an anniversary.
Right.
But when I was in California, I mean, you get cakes. You blow out a cake on your birthday and shit. It's a whole
Hmm.
big deal. Like, and I did fly out to California for my 1 year because I wanted that damn cake. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't care about eating that shit. I mean, I'm fat. I wanted to eat it too. But let's be real. Like, I wanted to like that satisfaction of like I did it. Here I am. So, and I remember the guy that did the cake commitment for the meeting I wanted to go to specifically. I let him know like a month in advance. I'm like, yeah, bro, I'm coming. I'll be there. I bought my ticket. Get the cake ready, man.
Yeah, that's a big
So,
deal, man. I listen to a lot of speaker tapes, and they talk. It's a big deal, and they let you cut your own cake. That's a big deal.
yeah,
Um,
it is.
it's
Yeah,
a little different around here for birthdays or anniversaries. You might have cake or something, but it's really just it's some home groups around here will do like a speaker. Like you find your own speaker, you have somebody come speak for you. In this particular area, it's really you just you pick up a medallion, keep it
that's
moving.
yeah.
Try and pretend to be humble.
Trying. Yeah, I know that feeling. Now, what do you clean from? What was your drugs of choice?
I was a trash can guy. I would do anything that was laid before me. But and it's funny, you'll hear the term drug of choice used a lot, which is a big misnomer. I had no choice. The message I was taught to carry teaches me that I had no choice. But my substances of no choice, were meth and heroin.
Yeah, usually when I say drug of choice, I mean like you have all the money in the world. What are you buying? You know what I
Oh yeah,
mean? Like
yeah.
that's more or less like, when you had a choice. I think a lot of us were like, whatever more. I always say I was addicted to more. Whatever it was, I wanted more of it. And I think a
Hmm.
lot of us can relate to that, where it's like it didn't matter what it was, just take me away. That kind of
Anything to
feeling.
lessen the pain of being me, man.
Yeah. Now, when did being you start becoming a problem and you wanted to start escaping?
Oh man, that was, I was sick long before I found substances. A little kid, man. So just a little my backstory. My parents were addicts and alcoholics. They were as sick as could be. Um, and so I was a codependent long before I picked up a substance, and that's another form of recovery I've been getting into recently. I'm a newcomer at codependency recovery, so it's really interesting. But really early on, my dad was an angry, violent guy, and my mom was a terrified, enabling caretaker type. So pretty early on, I wasn't comfortable. I've never been comfortable being me, and it's even that's a new thing. I'm starting to get comfortable being me. I'm definitely a lot more than I was, but my biological father died when I was about a year old, and from an early age, I knew that I was like I was the odd one in the family. Um,
Now, you have a
my little
sister
brother,
too, because that's how we met. How many? What are you and the sibling? You know what I mean? Because your sister introduced us. So, like, where do you fall with the siblings?
well, that's my sister-in-law. She
Oh,
is
okay.
the fiance of my little brother. I was the oldest. It's interesting, man. I had some Jerry Springer business going on early in my life. My little brother is half brother, half cousin. We share a mother, and our fathers were brothers.
That is some
Yeah,
Jerry
I'm from the
Springer shit.
Carolinas, brother. Yeah, I'm from the
Yeah,
South.
yeah, you are.
So early on, I felt like the odd one out. I was the black sheep early on, and
Wait, I gotta get this math right again. Your mom left your dad, or you and your mom, you and your biological dad. Oh, he passed.
right,
Your
right.
dad passed. And how did he pass?
He was that happened in Ohio. It was a drunk driving accident.
Was
Yeah.
he drunk or was somebody else?
Uh, his It's a pretty messed up story. His
Oh,
school
okay.
resource officer was fucked up and hit him. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if he was a drinker or anything like that, or if that was. But you mean okay? So I'm just trying to get this all right in my head now.
No,
So
right,
you
yeah.
got okay. Your dad passed, and then your mom, started dating your dad's brother,
Right.
and
Right. My
then
dad's brother sort of stepped in, and it was, the timing was weird, but that's how it ended up.
okay,
I was, the guy I know as my dad is actually my uncle. Yeah.
okay, at least yeah, that makes a lot more sense to me than that could have been a lot worse for a Carolina or a Southern thing.
Right. Right.
So
Oh, dude.
at
Yeah, it
least
gets way
she
sicker than
was.
that.
Yeah, so at least he was stepping in and trying to do the right thing. So that kind of makes sense. Okay, so now I'm caught up. Is that your only brother, your only sibling?
Yeah. Yeah. Just the one little
Okay.
brother, and he'd
At least you guys probably look alike, right? Because genetics, because the brother, dad, right?
we look pretty
Yeah.
similar. Yeah.
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 Okay.
We look
Cool.
pretty similar. And
Okay.
he caught the bug too, man. He's like me. I don't know how in touch with that truth he is, but he's just like me.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, now you're lost. Like you're just like, I don't know who you are anymore. Obviously, how old were you when your dad passed? You said one.
I was like one, and I think by the time and that was never a secret. That was never a secret. I knew that the whole time, but I really started to feel that and like sort of somewhat understand it maybe 5 or 6. Um, and my dad was an abusive guy. He was an angry. I know today that he was a sick man and he was doing the absolute best he could. And I'm super grateful. I love the guy, but that wasn't the case then. I didn't always have the clarity that inventory and step work has given me. And he was an angry guy. I was a terrified kid. I was afraid before I was anything else. You know,
Yeah.
um,
That makes complete sense. So I mean, why wouldn't you be? So when did you try to start escaping? Was it like before substances? Were you escaping with something else? Like they always say like sugar, or I was like lying a lot, or like I'm sure you found something when you were digging into your past that looks
there
like you
was a
did.
lot of stuff, man.
Yeah.
So, do you remember going through school? You remember that kid that had his book bag way too high and walked real fast on the way to class and got there before anyone else and didn't say anything? That was
Yep.
me.
Okay.
Probably, I think my first escape was books. As soon as I learned to read, that was my deal, man. Because I could open Harry Potter and I'm Harry Potter. I don't have to be Tim anymore. I don't have to be little scared Timmy. I can be somebody else. So
Yeah.
I escaped reality in books early on. And then I discovered another love of mine, which was stealing
There
real
it is.
early on. It's a powerful feeling, man. I can win. I can take what's yours, and that's a victory for me. And especially, I was under the delusion that I was a good liar and a good thief. Everybody knew what was going on, man. Um, but that's a way I found to escape. Then you add girls into that, and I was terrified of them, but that was a good escape. I could and that's where the line comes in. I could be a black belt in karate with a scholarship, and that was none of that shit was true.
How old are you, by the way? I'm just trying to get an
I
idea of
turned
like how
I
of
just turned
how like
30,
okay, so you were born in '90, right? You're 91, so
91.
you were growing up in the '90s. So, we didn't have the technology that the kids have today, where they can like call you out on for being a liar a lot easier. So,
Right.
yeah, in the '90s, you could really be anybody you wanted still.
And that was my deal, man. And we moved around a lot, which it lent itself to me being able to be who I wanted to be. Every new school, I could be a totally new guy. Uh, if the last set of lies didn't work, I could tweak them a little bit,
Yeah.
And we did move around a lot. I lived in Charlotte and a lot in that area within about an hour there, and then I lived in Myrtle Beach a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I just had somebody on from Charlotte yesterday, actually. Yeah. So
Awesome, awesome recovery in Charlotte, man. They're real active.
are they? That's cool. Yeah, I was in Durham. Like that's where I lived for a year, but I was drinking hard when I was down there. I was not ready. I just lost my fiance to suicide, and I was just like dove in. Like I was already 5 years, no shit, 7 years into my addiction at that point, like of daily use of pills, and then so I couldn't get pills as easy in North Carolina, but I could sure as hell drink,
Right,
and then I could sure as hell find some coke, and anything that I could find, I was gonna do. So,
right.
but all right, so now you're going through school, you're stealing, lying. And but when does the alcohol come in? I'm assuming that's first.
Well, so growing up, my dad drank openly, and he was a pretty heavy drinker, and he worked hard and he drank hard. He was as blue collar as they get, and he did work really hard, and he drank really hard when he got home. So I was a bartender before I was a drinker, and it's funny how some of my codependency started to show it myself. I started to try to control his drink, and I would mix drinks uh, a little less strong or take a little longer to go get another beer. My sickness showed itself in that. And my parents were potheads. And that's how it started. My mom came to me on my 13th. It was going to be my 13th birthday and asked me what I wanted. And maybe 10-ish, they stopped hiding the fact that they were smoking pot. I wasn't allowed to sit there and I wasn't allowed to smoke, but I knew what was going on, and they stopped lying. So I wanted to party with them. And that's what I told my mom. I was like, I want to get high with you guys. And she was like, all right, because that's how she was raised. My grandparents were psychos from the 70s. Everybody partied together. And the attitude was, if you're going to do it anyway, you might as well do it here when you're safe with me, which I sort of get. But, it's definitely not how I would do with my kid today, knowing better, But they did the best they could, man. So my 13th birthday, I smoked weed, and I had an abnormal reaction to substances the very first time. We were riding around, and I tried to hit the bowl, and I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't, or we tried to smoke a joint first, and I was like pinching it shut with my lips. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was getting pissed because I didn't even know what the desired effect was, but I knew I wasn't getting it, and I was getting pissed. So they put it in the bowl, and I couldn't figure that out either. And I didn't get high the first time, and I was irate. I went home and went to sleep, but from that moment on, everything went out the window. I was a fairly academically gifted kid. I was in the gifted and talented and accelerated classes and stuff. I had big dreams and aspirations. I wanted to build bridges. I wanted to be able to drive across a bridge one day and have my name on the plaque as the engineer that designed it.
That's
and I did real well in school.
I think bridges are cool as shit. Like, and every time I see them, I'm always like, checking them out, and seeing who made it and who designed it and shit. It's one of those weird things. I
geek out on that stuff, man.
That's why I love Pittsburgh, because like Pittsburgh has like 400 bridges in their city.
Oh wow!
I don't know if you know that. It's the most per capita in the world. It has like 430 bridges or some shit like that. And
wow,
but it makes sense, because think about it. Where did steel come from? No, where did steel come from? Steel was being made and produced out of Pittsburgh back in the day. So they were just building these bridges with all their excess steel they had on the cheap, because they weren't shipping the steel anywhere. And then it's almost like, here's a picture of this bridge if you want this bridge. Here's you know what I mean? So like, not all the bridges are, all over giant, some of them are really small, on a small scale, but yeah, they have like ridiculous amount. And it's because of like back in the steel. Yeah, just a little fun fact that means nothing for you.
Well, gives me another reason to go up there.
Yeah, to you, that's pretty cool. Probably everybody else is like, what the hell are bridges for? All right.
Nope.
So anyway, yeah. So you're academic, you're doing good, and weed didn't work for you.
Well, it didn't work the first time.
Yeah.
Every time moving forward, it had the desired effect, and I actually learned what the effect was. But from that first time, I put a substance in my body. Everything else went out the window, man. I was ready to go, and I slowly progressed. I have this progressive disease. I slowly progressed. It was just weed for a while, and my family were opium partiers. I could, whatever I wanted to do, I could do with my mom and my grandfather, who I was around. And it went to cocaine, and it went to crack, and it went to pills. Other than weed, the first thing I did was pills, and I had an abnormal reaction then too. My mom had these painkillers, and I took one, and I felt that euphoria, and I was like, okay, this is what it's about. Yes, sir. Okay. And I didn't know to like fight the nod, so I took a nap, and I woke up sober, and I was pissed. I was irate. That's an abnormal reaction. I didn't know it then. I didn't have the verbiage and the misunderstanding of it that I have today, but it's pretty clear looking back, dude. I was fucked from the very start, immediately. And moving forward, whenever something new came into my path, Absolutely. One of my favorite speakers, he talks a lot about that, and he talks about, would you like to do this? Well, yeah. Oh, I got this. Would you like to do this? Well, yeah. What is it? Yes, 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 absolutely. And that's how it went. So I started at 13, and my progression was somewhat slow. It was still fun for a number of years until about 16, things got a little hairy. I ended up moving from Charlotte to Myrtle Beach to live with my uncle, and I straightened up relatively. I was just smoking weed, and the weekend kegger. I was a high school kid, but then some stuff happened in high school. I finally met this girl, this beautiful little ballet dancer that for some reason loved me and was just enamored with me. So I had the hot little girlfriend. I had the fellowship that I didn't know that I craved. I had found friends. I was in this pre-engineering program and in this satellite high school I was going to. So I had friends. I belonged. All my instincts were being satisfied. I had no idea that's what was happening, but that's what was happening. All my instincts were being satisfied. And I had full rides to go to different schools. So high school ends and my now ex-wife doesn't go. So of course I don't go. I'm in love, why live? So immediate resentment, immediate self-hatred. And on top of that, all of these instincts that were being satisfied are now gone. My social instincts, my sex instincts, all these things are gone. I have nothing left but the chemical peace of mind. And I jumped in pretty hard. Things spiraled so quickly. So, I graduate high school, 18, 19. Within a year, I am out of my mind, man. I start, my daughter's born, she's 11 today. She's great, but, or she'll be 11 in December. But by the time she's born, I'm experiencing rolling blackouts. There's months of my life I have no recollection of. Things got really
drinking or from because
dude.
Xanax made me black out. Xanax
Right.
Xanax and alcohol, especially combined, that was the cocktail that it was like as soon as you do it, you instantly black out.
Right.
And I was into Xanax for a while. Benzos and opiates were my thing. And my main thing, like I was getting 120 Xanny, bars and 120, Roxy 30s every month from a shady doctor for a while. Just to give you an idea of like what that was like my choice, that I was like, all right, what this is what I wanted. When the doctor has a script out and you pay them cash to get it, and they
Right.
say, all right, what do you want? That's what I said, and I was off. I was already off for like 3 years, but then I was really off, once I was going to a doctor too. So yeah, the
You
Xannies
can name
always
your substances, man. Yeah.
blacked out like instantly, and I always stole shit when I blacked out on Xanax. I don't know why. Xanax
Yes,
was
sir.
like everybody I talked to, was like, "Oh, I stole a lot." Were you on Xannies? Yeah, every single
Any
person.
benzos, I'm stealing some shit.
Yeah. Everybody, listen to that. Every single person. I don't even take them out of the episode because I find it's important that everybody hears from every single person. Xanax makes you steal. It's just
That particular inhibition is lowered somehow. I'm no pharmacologist, but that's how it works.
But like me, you were trying to be your own pharmacologist for a while, right? You were a pharmacist, you were a therapist.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, and that's self-medication. That's something I learned from a very young age. Even before with how my mother was. That's if there's
Yeah,
something wrong, there's a pill you can take for it.
yeah.
No matter what your problem is, there is a chemical that will fix this problem, and that was ingrained in me pretty early. And that's a hard habit to kick.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
so
funny
any
you're talking about the. No, go ahead.
no, yeah.
So it's funny you're talking about the name your script. America went through a pharmaceutical golden age, and that was a fun wave to ride. It had heavy consequences, but man, it was good while it lasted.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I remember
Florida,
that.
man, the amount of Aroxys coming out of Florida was fucking wild.
I just talked to somebody yesterday. Somebody I did 4 yesterday, and I'm going 4 today. And somebody yesterday they said they used to drive 22 hours from Ohio to Florida 6 times a month.
Man,
Her and her husband
six
would
times a month.
they would collectively pick up around 1,800 30s and 1,500 15s every single month, and 1,800 bars on their trips because they would hit a bunch of doctors each time. Yeah, man.
God.
Yeah, I thought I was doing 2 hours 4 times a week each way, so 4 hours round trip 4 times a week to pick up my pills in Jersey, and that's what I was doing for the last 3 years of my addiction, was doing that drive. I thought that was a lot, but she said,
When I got into volume, it wasn't pharmaceuticals. And I had kidney stones growing up, so there was my license for opiates. Uh, and then when I started, getting committed and having mental health diagnosis and stuff, that was my license for benzos and different stuff. I didn't have to drive; I would just wait on my script and then eat it in a day.
oh yeah, my script was always gone within 5 days. Like it never lasted. As soon as I got it, and and the problem is then you're all of a sudden you're out, and then you're like, all right, I need a spot from somebody. Can somebody spot me? I get my script, I'll pay you back, with some juice on
You're
it.
in the hole on day two. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. It's impossible to get ahead when you owe everybody and you don't have a job.
Yep. Yeah, my job was selling pills. I did have I no, but I was functioning though. I was working the entire time pretty much, like
Oh
off
wow.
and on. Yeah, I mean that's why I think I lasted so long, doing Roxy's. I did Roxy's for 9.5 years every single day.
Man.
And I can say I never did heroin just because I loved oxys so much.
Right.
Those blues. I wanted them, and that's all I wanted. Like as my moment of clarity, like when I did it, my aha moment, my moment of arrival. I remember still to this day, and I was like, I need this, and I want this every single day. And like I came
Mhm.
to terms. When did you know you were an addict? Like I knew I was an addict a month in. A month into my addiction, I'm like, oh, like I need this every day, and that's okay. I want these. I'm gonna continue to work because they make me better. That lie.
Man, I didn't admit to myself that I was an addict or alcoholic for a long time, but I knew that I had an abnormal habit real early. 14,
Yeah, I'm always
probably
curious of
14.
when somebody, a lot of people, most people tell me, oh, it wasn't until like a month into going to meetings that like I finally admitted it. So you're not alone in that.
Right.
According to other people, I'm one of the rare ones that kind of came to terms with it early on and just accepted it. You
Right.
know, so
That's
yeah,
that's an interesting question, man. Because a lot of the times, like this type of this type of question is more about powerlessness than it is like what I've branded myself or what I've admitted to. Um, so it's an interesting way to approach that question. It's definitely gonna I can inventory that. That's cool, man. But I think running around the hood with my mom's boyfriend, like selling dope as a 14-year-old kid, there was a moment where I was like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Like this is strange. Like why am I holding this gun? Like I've never shot a gun. Why am I holding this gun? Because I wasn't raised in the hood. I was raised in the country, man. I was taught wrong from right. But there's this book I read that it talks about having moral and philosophical convictions galore and not being able to live up to them even when I tried. And that was my story. That was my story. Yeah, man. I knew I was abnormal, but it was a long time before I was able to admit that I was an alcoholic or an addict. I knew I had a problem though, pretty soon.
yeah, yeah. Because
Uh,
now you're going to these doctors and they're giving you the meds that you want. But it sounds like, obviously they're gone for the day. So then what happened once you went through your script? How'd that day look?
Well, there was a period of time where I would just chase more pharmaceuticals while I'm smoking weed and doing powder. Then eventually heroin came in, uh, and I was never an IV user of anything purely by grace. It wasn't because I was smart. It was because God used my fear as an instrument of grace. Um, but I think a part of me, I was afraid that if I put that needle in me, I would never stop.
That was
And that thought was real quick. I sort of had that understanding kind of quick.
Yeah, that's what I meant by, so like when I, like a month into me like doing pills every day for a month straight kind of thing, I'm sitting with my buddy and he just got his wisdom teeth out, and like he had perk fives, like nothing. It's like M&M's to
Nothing.
me.
Yeah.
And so he popped one, and like before, he didn't know I was on pills. You don't tell anybody that you're doing this. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like, and we're like best friends. So like, I slam back like 3 or 4 30s before I go up to hang out with him. We're playing video games or whatever. But within 10 minutes, he's knocked out cold, and I'm
Right.
sitting there like, whoa, okay, I guess I am addicted to this. And then like I had one of those conversations with myself that you don't usually have. Apparently people don't usually have, but I thought it was normal. But I had a conversation with myself of like, all right, what do we do now? Like obviously
Mhm.
this is an issue if like, this dude just did a 5 milligram Percocet and he's out cold snoring and you have 120 milligrams in you and you're just like good to go and up. I was
Ready
like,
for
all
some
right,
more. Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, all right, but I love this, and I really
Mhm.
want this every single day, and I
Mhm.
think I'm in control of this. My job's going good. I still have money, and as long as I don't do heroin, I'm gonna stay in control. But if you do heroin, you're gonna lose control of everything, and that's when it's gonna get bad. And
Right.
that's the conversation I had with myself. And I only got close one time, and it was only because I was withdrawing bad. And shit happens and it fell
Desperate.
through, and I got my other things instead.
Mhm.
Luckily, because I know if I would have sniffed that line and waiting for me in the bathroom, I never would have came back to pills again.
Right.
And it was that kind of thing. And I even texted my dealer like, "Hey man, if you're not here soon, I'm going to do a line of dope that this dude's setting up for me." Like,
Right.
and he probably knew like I'm going to lose a customer that because makes me a lot of money. So
Mhm.
he hurried up and got over there, and I didn't do it. So yeah, I had that conversation, and I know a lot of people don't, and I'm glad I fucking did. Looking back, 'cause I can't tell you I'd be sitting here if I would have did dope that one time because I don't mind needles. I'm filled with tattoos. Needles don't bother me. So it was just I love sniffing pills. I never smoked them. I never did any of that because I loved the act of sniffing.
Right. Yeah. I got some tattoos, but I just and I had got in the hospital a lot. IVs was never a problem, but the like self injecting was never something I did.
Yeah.
I had that same sort of conversation at like with myself at 14 or 15. Now that I think of it, about powder. Uh,
Okay.
I'm doing powder, and my dad and my grandfather and my mother and all their friends are all hanging around smoking crack, and I was like, I'm not as bad as them. As long as I don't smoke crack, it's cool if I just do my body weight in powder every week. And it's like 14, 15-year-old kid. And I do remember thinking the same thing about heroin, but that didn't last long. And it's like there was a time when the pharmaceuticals I was coming in contact with were legitimate. It wasn't like a fentanyl pressed pill in some dealer's basement. It was like good pills.
Yeah,
And
me
when
too.
those were still around, it was cool. I just wanted to do pills. But when it was all fentanyl, it's like, well, fuck, dude, I might as well go get this bag of fentanyl they're calling heroin. It's way cheaper. Yeah, desperation, set of circumstances, those moral and philosophical convictions. I know right
Yeah.
from wrong, but if wrong is easier or cheaper, I'm going wrong all day long, dude. Um,
Yeah, I
so
didn't mind the price. I was always gonna wheel and deal and find a way to get my pills. And I call it, how they always say you get three loves of your life and everything. Like I call pills the first love,
right,
that I had. Because like it was that thing of like, oh, I want to be with you every day. I need you around every day, and I need you in my life. And I had some lady, at one of the meetings, and it was for support, family support, and kind of like an Al-Anon kind of thing and but more for them to talk to other people in recovery, not talk to other families, just to
right,
get different perspectives. And she asked me, she was like, I don't understand. I can't understand why my son won't stop getting high. It's been 15 years in his mid 30s. He won't figure it out. And I just don't get it. And I said, okay, let me figure this out. Have you ever been in a bad relationship with somebody and your family did not like that person? She's like, yeah. I'm like, and you keep saying to them, you don't know what it's like when we're together. He's good to me. He's really good. He's good for me. I feel great when I'm with him. He makes me feel ways that nobody's ever made me feel. And they just never understood you. She's like, yeah.
hmm
I'm like, that's us and our relationship with that drug. You don't understand it. He needs to get away, but he's like, you don't know what it's like when we're alone.
Right.
and it's the same kind of feeling. And then she was
Yeah,
like,
it's
wow,
exactly the same.
for the first time in like 15 years, I can actually understand and like, empathize with my son because I do know that feeling.
Right.
So,
That's
it's a,
powerful, man.
yeah.
That's powerful.
So
And
you have your kid now. You had your kid in your 20s with your ex.
yeah,
Um,
I thought I was 19, 18, 19. Yeah.
and
Uh,
so how and what are your in and out institutions? Or you in and out of mental institutions?
oh yeah, dude. So I was living in South Carolina. I was committed. I don't know. She says something like a dozen times. She's the one I go to for the historically accurate stuff. I have no recollection, but I was committed enough that the state of South Carolina stripped my parental rights on the basis of insanity. I was deemed legally insane. They told my family and people that I'm not going to be able to live alone. I'm not going to be able to have a bank account, car insurance, driver's license. I'm essentially going to be a ward of the state if I keep doing what I'm doing, and that would have been the case. I
And
was well on my way.
that was based on drugs, like
Yeah,
psychosis from drugs. Was it?
I was given a lot of mental health diagnosis, and I want to be real careful how I say this, because this is just my story, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with mental illness. It's a very real thing, and it deserves to be addressed. And in the meetings I go to, it's talked about it as an outside issue. Alcoholism and addiction are partly mental illnesses. This is not an outside issue, and this is a real thing. So when I say this, I want to be real clear that this is just my story, and there's no judgment on anyone else if it's different than my story. This is just my experience.
Mm.
So I'm given all these mental health diagnoses, bipolar and borderline and explosive personality disorder, all this wild stuff, intermittent rage. I was given a lot of diagnosis, and my rights are stripped because of that. I'm deemed insane, in and out of institutions. But today, I don't take any medicine. Not that there's anything wrong with taking medicine at all. Take your medicine if your doctor tells you to, but I'm not prescribed any. I'm stable. I'm good to go. I'm
Yeah,
recovered
yeah.
from a number of things.
There's a lot of misdiagnosis in the mental health field. And my first fiance that I briefly mentioned, she was bipolar, schizophrenic, and alcoholic, and they were legitimate, things, but they didn't even know how to treat her.
Right.
And it was constantly changing meds, constantly, well, try this, try this. It's all trial and error based. Everyone has different chemicals in their brain, so they react differently with different chemicals you put in your body. That's why somebody can smoke a blunt, hand it to the next person, and have two different effects for two different people. And
Right.
somebody could be having Jack Daniels, and whiskey can make somebody go crazy and somebody go mellow. It's all because of the chemicals in our brain.
Mm.
So, with mental illness, that is the biggest thing that like you can break your arm and put it into a cast and you can see that it's healing, but with your brain you can't see that.
You see
And
your actions. Yeah.
yeah, and so it takes time, and then the medicines, they take time to work themselves. Sometimes it's 6 weeks for some of these medicines to get it, even you a full effect to see if they're going to work or not, bro. And so don't feel like you're doing any kind of disservice to the mental health community by saying that, because if anything, you would be, somebody to look up to, that you can find a way to figure your mental health out. That there's a lot of misdiagnosis out there. And I'll be
And
the first one to say that.
and dude, bipolar is the most misdiagnosed thing for addicts and alcoholics because you know addiction and alcoholism present as bipolar symptoms. Anxiety and depression are the biggest symptoms of untreated addiction and alcoholism.
Yeah.
It's so easy. And this book I read, there's a chapter in it that it talks about how, doctors are very smart. They have ultra modern standards, but they're not well equipped to handle the forces of good that lie outside their synthetic knowledge. A doctor is very smart. He can help me a lot. He knows more than I'll ever know about the human body and the workings of the brain. But that doctor's often not qualified to treat me spiritually, and that is the basis of my disease.
Yeah.
Um, Alcohol and drugs was a symptom of my disease. My alcoholism and my addiction has next to nothing to do with those symptoms. It's next to nothing to do with substances. I'm
Yeah. I
spiritually sick.
Yeah. And your solution was drugs and alcohol, but your problem wasn't drugs and alcohol.
Right.
Yeah.
And my solution stopped working.
They
Yeah.
they sure do. Now all these trips in and out of the psych wards and everything like that, no rehabs in there. Nobody ever thought like maybe Tim just needs to dry out in rehab and figure can see a counselor in rehab, or were you not being honest about your drug use?
Well, I wasn't being honest, but it was no mystery. Everybody knew what was going on. I was never as good as hiding my stuff as I thought I was. I thought I was pulling the wool over everybody's eyes, but everybody knew exactly what was going on. And a lot of these places were dual diagnosis. It was alcoholism and addiction with mental illness. And more often than not, I would end up in these places after a suicide attempt. Tried to saw my hands off a couple times. I overdosed a bunch. A big one was I took like 270 benzos one time. It was ugly stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean,
so while I'm in
270
these,
would kill a horse, but luckily for you, you had a tolerance that could withstand it and keep you alive.
eh, grace.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to attribute that to my tolerance, man. That's God, 100%. It was 90 K2s, 90 footballs, and 90 Valiums. Brand new scripts. My poor mother-in-law, I don't know what she had to go through to get her medicine back, but my ex-wife called me stupid, and I was like, "I'll show you stupid. Check this shit out." It was an ugly time, but
You're like me, man. My resentments killed me all the time, and every
number
time
one
I got,
offender, man.
yep, every time I got like mad at somebody for calling me out on my shit, I'm like, I'll show you, and
Check this
then,
out.
yeah, look what I can do now,
Right.
and, it's all just dumb shit that like, just sick. It's just, I'm so glad that I finally got the help that I needed to figure that shit out because now I'm a little bit spiteful. I'm not perfect, but I don't take that out on myself anymore. I have more of fun with spite as opposed to
Right.
make and hurt myself with spite. Because spite, man, that shit was a killer for me, dude. Killer. All right, so you're in and out of the psych wards now. No rehabs at all, right?
Well, like I was saying, it's they're like dual diagnosis places. So yeah, there was a rehab aspect to a lot of this stuff, and while I'm in and out of these places, that's where I was introduced to 12-step recovery. Um, these really wonderful, God conscious, service oriented people came in to try and share this message of hope with me, and I fucking hated them. Let me go back to my plastic mattress. I don't like you. I sure as hell don't like your God, and I'm good, man. I need to figure this out. I just need to figure it out. Um, and I'll be fine if you would please leave me alone. I was never that nice about it though.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
More like get the fuck out of here.
Fuck all the way off immediately and forever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So
So
once, so you get out, you go ahead. What's
no,
up
yeah, well,
next?
that's sort of how I was introduced to this. And after a while, um, I somewhat learned how to let me plug this thing up. I somewhat learned how to stay out of those institutions, and I'm not that I managed better, but I started to learn how to stay out of the authorities' eyes, where I wasn't getting locked up as much, and I could use and drink like I wanted to, and steal and rob and cheat to make that happen. I didn't function. My job was stealing and ripping people's copper wire out of their houses and doing whatever. I would get little jobs here and there, but it never lasted. You nod off in front of the boss man, you're probably going to get fired. Um, and that went on for a while. Um, but the seed had been planted in me. I knew that there was a better way, even if I wasn't ready for it yet. And it took a hell of a long time, but I eventually was ready to do something different. Um, my life got really dark, man. I Until I got clean and sober was an absentee, deadbeat father. I was an awful, abusive husband. You name it, I did it. My poor ex-wife, that was she's got PTSD, man. I scarred everyone I was around. My addiction and alcoholism touched everybody that I touched, and I'm really grateful to have been given a solution. I can go make amends, and I can not do these things to people anymore. I don't spread carnage where I go today. I'm able to spread hope for the most part, which is really cool.
Yeah, definitely. So what was the final straw, the final thing in February 2018 where you're like, I surrender.
So mid to late 2017. I'm living in Charlotte, and there's this wonderful little rehab in Monroe across from the hospital. And growing up, it's called the Hilltop Restaurant. My family went there. It was a treat. We'd go there and eat salt and pepper catfish with Mama and Papa every Saturday. And this little rehab center, their meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner every day was catered by the Hilltop. And it's this little 7-day detox. It was an oasis, man. Wonderful place, clean, nice little plastic mattress I could squirm around and not sleep on. So I went there the first time, and subconsciously, maybe I was just looking, because if I could get physically better when I got out, I could get high like I wanted to. And that's what it was the first time I went there, and I was getting high on the way home. The second time I went, and I was like, I need to do something different. So I went to some aftercare. I went to a place in Charlotte. It's an extended rehab for guys. Great place, but I wasn't ready. I stayed like 2 days, and I walked a pretty fair distance to go get me something. And it was maybe a year, closer to a year after that I went back the third time. The last straw was, man, I didn't get clean and sober because I wanted to find God. I didn't get clean and sober because I wanted to help you. I didn't get clean and sober to carry a message of hope. I simply didn't want to ask for cigarettes. I didn't want to ask for food. I didn't want to sleep on anybody else's shitty motel room floor. I didn't want to wake up with cockroaches on me. My pride and my ego drove me in here. God used my defects to get to me. And that's what it was. I was tired of, about to be 27 years old. I was like, man, I'm tired of sleeping on my mom's shitty motel room floor and like intentionally knocking rocks off the table so I can crumb when these people leave and get high like I want to, So what happened was, me and one of my buddies had somehow gotten a motel room to ourselves for the night. We're sitting around this little round table that's got chalk marks on it. It looks like it's been through a war with machetes. People have been cutting crack on this table for 20 years, man. And we're sitting there, and we got dope in couple different kinds of dope sitting in between us. And the pipes sat there loaded all night long while I sat there and I talked to this guy the little bit that I thought I knew about a new way of life. I didn't learn anything in those meetings those nice people brought into those treatment centers, but I sort of learned to parrot some of the stuff they said. The bottom line was, I knew there was a better way, and I knew a little bit about how to talk about it in a positive fashion. So I talked to this guy about recovery, which I knew nothing about, all night long. And his jaw was on the floor the whole time. And don't get me wrong, before we checked out, we did all that dope, but
Yeah, you did.
It was less than a week later, we were both on the way to rehab. He's dead. But I'm not. So I came to Winston, Winston-Salem is where I'm at now. I came here after I went to that same detox, and then I went to a rehab center, a 14-day place, and something happened to me there. So they got the steps and the traditions on the wall, and I'm sitting there and
That's a Rule
looking.
62.
Yeah, it's a 62 tattoo. Yeah.
Is that for Rule 62?
Yeah. Don't take yourself so damn seriously.
Yeah, I had somebody else I interviewed a few weeks. She has Rule 62 on her arm, and the person that gave it to her gave me like half of mine too. And
That's awesome,
I remember when she got that tattoo, I was there in LA when she was getting it. So now whenever I see a 62, I know what it is. Sorry, I cut you off. It caught
that's
my
awesome,
eye.
Man.
It caught my eye, and I just had
to know what that is. That's cool, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate you noticing it. That's cool, man. I want to get step 14 somewhere too. Step 14 is mind your fucking business. But so I go to this rehab. I'm there they let me stay a couple of days until I could find a bed, and I went to a not an Oxford house, but it's like more structured. It's not democratically run. It's run by a committee, and I stayed there for 7 months. But back to what happened in the rehab. I was sitting there and I'm looking at the steps on the wall, and I had no idea how to do these things. No clue. But I made the decision in my mind that I was going to do it. And from that moment on, I have not had an obsessive thought about chemicals of any kind. The obsession was removed from me that day. That's grace, man. I did no work for that. I just made the decision, and God was like, all right, kid, let's see what you can do. Let's see what I can carry you through is a better way to put that.
So then you were excited about, doing that from then on, I'm sure. You were like, where do I get, like, how do I talk to somebody about this?
Right. Oh, I was stoked. Yeah. And people were bringing meetings in, and I met some really cool people that are still in my network today, some of my heroes, and they had the same message of hope that they had then. They have that same message now. Um, and I get to walk shoulder to shoulder with them and try to live this way of life that I've been gifted with. So I go to this sober living house for 7 months, and I was in a 12-step fellowship. I've switched fellowships since then, but I did what I was told to do, man. I found a sponsor, started working some steps. I worked them wildly, incredibly slowly. In that first year, I got through step 4, which is fucking preposterous. But I was chairing meetings. I was immediately in service. I had a trusted servant position in my home group. I was doing everything I could to do the deal. I even was trying to sponsor people, wanted to. At the end of that first year, I was nowhere near qualified yet. I didn't know that yet, though.
I was sponsoring by month 4, don't worry. I think,
that's how it's supposed to be. Yes, sir.
but it was only because I don't even know why. I would just, just like you, I was fully in it, but I guess I didn't take my time. You know what I mean? Like I was working quickly through it. Because
Right.
I knew I was on a clock anyway while I was in California, and I liked my group out there, but I knew I wasn't gonna be there forever, and I wanted to be done it by the time I came back here. So I think I worked a little extra quicker because I wanted to be done by the time I came back to Pennsylvania, and so it worked out. I mean, I was speaking at meetings at 30 days,
Yeah, man. See,
but
that's how it's supposed to be.
but I was asked. I didn't like, hey, you want me to like? I would share a lot, and then finally someone's like, you just want to speak? And I'm like, okay. Like, yeah, I'll talk about my message of hope of being here for 30 days. But yeah, let's do it. Fuck it.
That's awesome, man. I really feel like that's how it's supposed to be. So the forefathers of recovery, the 12-step movement started in the 30s, and like the first recovered person, dude, he had a spiritual experience in between like 7 to 9 days and was recovered and was sponsoring people. This guy was sponsoring people before he was out of treatment. It's not supposed to be a slow progress, slow process. You know what I mean? The steps can be worked in an expeditious fashion. You can be recovered and out there kicking ass for God and helping people very quickly. The idea that it takes a long time to do any of this is a fallacy. Um, yeah, I in the beginning, I was in another 12-step fellowship, and they all the respect in the world for them, but they do it a little differently than the way I've been taught to do it today. And I worked some steps real slow, but I was doing everything else that I was taught. But where I wasn't, we didn't talk about spiritual. The only thing spiritual about it was the fact that we said it was a spiritual fellowship. Nobody told me to pray. Nobody told me that my dependence must be on God. I was at about 9 months in when I got around some guys that were in another fellowship, and this dude was like, you need to be on your knees praying out loud morning and night. Do that. So I started doing that, and that's when things started to change for me. By no means was early recovery bad. It was awesome. And I was doing all the practical things. I was involved at the very start, but the spiritual stuff started at 9 months for me.
That's cool. It starts when it starts, you
Right.
know. And the most important thing is the obsession was already gone before you got into the work.
Right.
Because that's a big deal. If you were still obsessing while trying to go through, that would have really haltered and like had you take forever to actually finish.
Personal responsibility is big. In active addiction, I had no personal responsibility. That must be the first thing in sobriety. My sobriety is my responsibility. Yours is your responsibility. With a brand new guy, usually how I approach guys is, hey, how you doing? I'm Tim. Do you have a sponsor? No. Do you want one? Yes. Call me every day. And I require them to call me daily until they're through the steps or for a while. And, they usually do even after that. If I don't hear from you in the beginning, I might give you a courtesy call once or twice, maybe, but I'll probably check on you. But I'm not going to kiss your ass. I'm not here to baby and ninny coddle you, bro. If you don't want to be here, there's somebody who will accept my help.
Yeah.
you know where we're at. I love you. Fuck off till then.
Yep. It's the
Oh,
truth, man. It's definitely the truth. Um, and so because how you're really active, like in your recovery.
yeah, yeah.
Like, you spend every day doing something else in recovery, whether it's sponsoring somebody, talking to your sponsor, or doing whatever
Mhm.
you have to do.
I've got
That's a
commitments all over the place, man. Not just in my home group, but in the higher levels of service. I got a handful of sponsees. I was just reading Codependent No More. I do a little book study every Sunday morning in my house. I did that earlier. I got a sponsee coming over to read the last chapter of the book today. Then we're going to get in another book. I stay active, man. I'm here to serve God and His kids. That's what I do.
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean now it's time to give it back, right?
Yeah,
Now
yeah,
it's time to give back what was so freely given to you. I mean, because we've seen what it's like out there, and we know how hard it is to get out of there. What can I ask about your buddy?
the one that I went to treatment with in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, he wasn't. We weren't super close or anything, and I'm pretty sure he's dead. I think that's the last I heard of him. And I've lost a lot of friends, and I'm going to continue to.
But he went to
I don't
rehab
know.
with you.
Well, we ended up going to different ones,
Oh, okay.
and he took a little longer to go, and he didn't stick with it. Um, yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and that's, the thing is, like, now the only way I can live with overdoses, because there's so many of them,
right.
especially the longer you're in the program, the more overdoses you see, just based purely on just seeing people go in and out, and then, being close to people while they're in, and then when they go out and they die. So
Right.
it's not getting any better out there. But the only way I can live with overdose anymore is just to remind myself is they live, they died so I could live.
Right.
They gave me another lesson, and it's that it's still not good out there. And the fentanyl press one scared the shit out of me, bro. Like
No
they didn't,
quality control in the basement, bro.
and they weren't coming around until like at least my area. They weren't really around when I was getting high. They came around really when I got sober. So now even more so, I'm afraid to relapse because I don't know which one's going to be which.
Right.
And I always scrutinize the pills because they were starting to come around. But I had a pretty consistent dude that I went to that was getting them from pharmacies and that I trusted. I can't say that for a lot of people. I was a middleman for him, so he always had a lot of quantity. So
Mm.
that's why I was only fortunate. I mean, I got to the point where, I owed him $1,800 when I went to rehab. And I called him that Monday, and I'm like, "Yo, bro, like, I got I got to go to rehab. Like, I'm done with this." And like, I was close with my dealer to the point where, like, you talk to him every day, like,
Right.
and we got close, and he knew, I wasn't trying to make him feel bad when I was gonna say like I'm gonna fucking kill myself, bro. Like, I wasn't trying to make him feel bad. I was just being honest with him. So when I said to him like, "Yeah, man, like, I'm gonna go to rehab. I think is that okay?" And he was like, "I'll tell you what, you go to rehab and you stay clean. Just don't hit me up again, and you don't owe
Right.
me the money. But if I hear that you came back and you're getting high again, you owe me the money."
I want my money. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
feel like that's how it should be, man. That's a solid dope dealer right there, man.
yeah, well,
Um,
luckily he wasn't an addict, and he was
right.
more of a businessman, and I made him a ton of money and all that. And a lot of that $1,800 was juice, was
Right.
like, him fronting me and me owing him extra and shit. So I think that's what made him feel a little bit better about it. Maybe he cared. Maybe he did care about me and did want to see me get out of this because he knew how like broken I was at the end. Because, I was ready to go, bro. I was mixing coke into my 30s, like
Mm.
in the same line. My friend, she was into coke at the time, and she's clean now, luckily. But she was like, "Oh yeah, you're not on pills tonight, are you?" I'd be like, "No, no, 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 no." And then she would give me a line, and then she would walk out of the room, and I would drop a pill into it, crush it into the coke line that she left me, and just, you know, before she came back, it would all be mixed in blue and white. She wouldn't even notice. And I was trying to just like somebody said it perfectly in a meeting early on that always stuck with me, and it was I wasn't trying to kill myself. I just didn't want to be conscious anymore.
Right. Right.
That made sense to me.
I tried to kill myself a lot, but I was always really too chicken shit to make it happen. If I would have been, a lot of my suicide attempts were more means of manipulation of the people around me. I'm sad. I want to die. Give me what I want. Don't make me work. Buy me some dope. But yeah, at the end, man, at the very end of mine, I was just mostly just meth. There was a little crack in there. If the lower class people were around, but it was mostly meth for me at the end. It's funny. I got a buddy that talks about if you stay sober long enough, your teeth to grow back.
You
It's
got
true,
him back?
bro. I just my teeth. I just got my teeth fixed, which is really cool. I'm still trying to learn how to talk a little bit, but it means a lot, dude. I looked like a meth head for a long time after I got clean because my teeth were all rotten out. It's cool to look decent today, man. I like it.
Yeah, and I actually, somebody I'm interviewing tomorrow, I met him day one of rehab, and he was younger than me, but it was like his 20th rehab. And, he gave me a lot of amazing lessons, and I can't wait to talk to him tomorrow. But he finally has his teeth fixed, and that was his big thing, was getting his teeth from doing dope and meth and everything for so long. He started getting high on coke at 8.
Oh,
He
wow.
started doing coke with his mom at 8. So, that makes you feel any better about that 13. He ended up finding her dead with a brain aneurysm,
Oh, wow.
eventually. Yeah. So, like, I'm really looking forward to having him tell his story because he was a pinnacle for me of, what I was looking for information and trying to, like, do this the right way. He relapsed a bunch of times after that. Even with a shot of Vivitrol, he was still trying to get high. But he's sober today.
Obsession don't know no bounds, man.
Yeah, he would go to the meetings, but he was more like at first he was definitely I'm sure I'm putting words in his mouth, but he was definitely a 13th stepper in those meetings and skipping over the first 12. He
Cigarettes
he
and
was
girls in there, man.
yeah, he
I'll
wasn't
go to the
there for
meeting, sure.
yeah, he wasn't going to the meeting. He was like, "What meeting we going to?" Not because of the message, but because of the girls.
Right, right.
So, like, we're going to Santa Monica tonight. He's like, "All right, yeah, that's a good one. Let's go there."
Oh yeah, I'm sure
So
California meetings are right for the picking.
Well, you know what though? I love their meetings, man. Yeah, we're joking around about that part of it, but I loved their meetings. The big thing for me was they don't do this in PA as a tradition, and we don't have to even get into, but like how they don't read how it works here,
Right.
and it's a tradition to read that at every meeting out in Southern
Oh, it is here.
California. It is it okay, and that's where we got the name. That when I got out of
Perfect's
rehab,
not perfection.
the first
Yeah.
tattoo, like I had one tattoo when I was in rehab, and then I came back with like 17. Now I got like 40. But like my first tattoo I got was progress, not perfection, and I
Mm-hmm.
got that 2 days out of rehab. I was walking down the Venice Boardwalk and I walked into a place and that was the first thing that popped in my head that I wanted. On the inside of my arms, I could look down on it, always right there. And I'm glad
Right.
I put it there because when I was trying to search for a name for this place, I couldn't think of one. And I looked down, I was like, oh yeah, that's a good one. Progress,
There it
not
is.
perfection. And there it is, right there, fucking my arm. Yeah,
Yeah, man. There's a lot of paradox in 12-step recovery. Um, and I love that term. It's a universal truth, but it's also really easy to hide behind. Yeah,
yeah,
it's really easy to hide behind. And I got to be careful that I'm not hiding behind progress, not perfection. It was easy for me to do that in the beginning. I'll never achieve perfection, but I can shoot for it. Um,
yeah. Well, that's I've talked about this in other episodes, so I don't need to get into it too much. But like the definition of perfection, like you're not supposed to ever get it. Like and I was told an interesting thing that like back in the day, like American Indians, like when they painted something, they would purposely smudge it at the end because if it was perfect, then it was spiritually broken.
ooh,
Like it wasn't like it shouldn't be. It was like a curse if it was perfect, and it had to have some kind of inconsistency or something wrong with it for them to be okay with putting it out there. So like their old art, none of it's ever like perfect because it would be bad if it was.
well,
And
there's nothing human about perfection.
no, it's not. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yep. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with me, bro. Someone who has as much time as I do, and but definitely more a different kind of time because we do it differently. But either
right.
way, recovery for us is life. Doesn't matter how we spend our day or which kind of meeting we go to. All it matters is we talk to other people in recovery. Still, we're in it We're still being supportive. We still look for support. We still need support. We still want to give support. You know,
It's
those
all
are all
about a message of hope, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep, that's right. Right there, man. Dochus. That's Gaelic for hope. Always on my
Oh,
arm,
okay.
bro.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Always on my arm. You know, that's one of the things I wanted to get as a tattoo early on was hope. Because, you know, it's all I had. It's all I still have, you know, now. Because, like, this isn't funded by the state. You know, I'm not some rich kid with a trust fund. You know, this was run on unemployment up until when that ended yesterday. Now, you know, we don't have any funds. Disability soon. My wife has MS, and that's going to start rolling in soon. But we're not like trust fund babies that started a charity full time. Like, this is straight up brought on by hope that it gets going and we can just have some money coming in. I pray that it does, and I'm sure it will. And until then, we can pay the bills here and pay the bills at home, and that's good enough for me. You know, everything else will fall
Something I
into
have
place.
faith in, man, is if you're up there and you're trying to help people, you're trying to do God's work, then God's will is certainly going to be done in that situation, man. I have no doubt of that.
I agree.
You know, and as that message of hope, I would really love to say something right quick. If you're listening to this and you feel hopeless, you're not. Seemingly hopeless is a condition from which I have recovered today. So if you're listening to this and you want so badly to have any level of this peace and serenity that we've talked about today, find a meeting, find a sponsor, work the steps. Everything else works itself out in time. There is a better way, and it's so easily attainable. If you don't believe me, give it a shot. It worked for me. I'm only here because God worked on me through 12 steps. You can have the same thing.
Yeah, prove me wrong.
Please.
Try it. Try it. Prove me wrong. Tell me it doesn't work when you try it. Give it an honest effort. That's but that's awesome. I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you coming on. And now you got a book study, and that's awesome. And I'll hit you up when this is coming out too. So this way you know when it's gonna be posted. You can find me on Facebook too, and then this way you'll see all my posts there and shit like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna start spreading the word, man. I got people that like recovery podcasts, man. You're gonna have some new listeners for sure.
Awesome, bro. I'll talk to you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, brother. You have a good one.
I'll see you. All right, you too. Later.